Okay, all right, everybody. All right, everyone. Sorry for the delay there today. We've had some technical difficulties. That's why we don't have a proper introduction for the show. So we're just going to have to kind of go on the fly here today. Welcome, everyone, to the Let's Get Growing show. All right. So I have to admit to everybody on the top of the show, we're gonna have a great show today too. We got some great guests with us today here. I just did something I have never done before in the whole history of doing this show. The program we use has different studios for different shows. So we have a Saturday show and a Sunday show, and basically I went into the studio for the Sunday show and was getting everything ready and was getting going and all of that and was getting ready to start the show up, and we are like leading right up to the show start time, and then basically realized, wait a minute, this is the wrong show, and had to hurry up and get over here into the right studio. And by that time, everything wasn't set to connect with it right. So I had to restart everything, get it all redone and all of that. And by that time, we didn't get our introduction for the show started up and everything quite properly. So I'm just kind of bummed about that here. I don't know. I want to see if I can't find real quick here, because what a thing to do. And then, like I said, I haven't done anything like that before in all of doing this whole show the very first time. And that's kind of one of the things, because it has just kind of this thing. You can go in, but it labels the last one you set up. So this one I set up before I set up the last one. And because of that, it I went right into the one that was on the top and started going and started getting everything figured out. But you know what? Sometimes just with everything out there, we make a little bit of mistakes and try to get everything figured out and all of that too. But yeah, so that's kind of what kind of how the start of my day is going. I hope all of your start to all of your day is going all right as well too. I want to see if I can't load this up anyways and see if we can't get an introduction to the show. Just to get started, I'm just going to have to let everybody know, like I said, we're just running a little bit late. So anyways, if you are here with us right now, right at the top of the show, definitely click that like button, hit the thumbs up button. Definitely do that if you're here, and subscribe to the channel, subscribe to the Urban Gardener channel and the Let's Get Growing show. Hit the bell notification too, so you can be notified of all of the upcoming live streams and our videos, as well as share with all of your friends and all your garden clubs and groups and all of that. Any chance you get a opportunity to mention about the Let's Get Growing show and let everybody know about what we've got growing on here each and every Saturday and Sunday, as I mentioned too. Come and do that and let everybody know, so we can keep growing our audience here. We've got a great, wonderful, awesome audience, and definitely also to a big, huge shout out to all of you who are watching us on the replay, because yeah, we'd love to have everybody here live and a part of the live conversation. We are a great live show, but I know some of you don't have the opportunity to be able to do that. So it's great to have you join with us anyways with the replay here on YouTube. So definitely, if you're here on the replay, also get down into the comments section below and let me know you're here watching the show, and any suggestions, comments, questions, anything you might have. Even if you're just saying hi, drop into the comments. I love to hear from everybody. All right, everybody, let's get this show started.
No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey, gardeners, I hope you're all having a great week. I just wanted to come back here and show you, I mentioned last week about having volunteers and how sometimes you might want to pull some of them, because in the case of cucumbers, look at this. I just had a couple of plants that I let grow right here where I grow all of my Prax cherry tomatoes, and they are just taking over. I'm gonna have to really cut this back because we've actually got tomato plants down in here, but this is one of my favorite cucumber varieties here growing. And if I look right back down here, there's one right there. Lemon cucumbers. So delicious. And don't let them get yellow and big. This right here is perfect. Get them nice and young while they're still green and the seeds haven't hardened up. But yeah, this one's going to be delicious. All right, everybody, let's get growing. So, all right, there we go. That's more of a proper start to the show right there. I had to get it out anyways. I wanted to show you all that cucumber. I did mention that last week with one of our previous guests about that plant. I mean, geez, it's taking up everything. It's growing all over. There are actually still a couple of tomato plants you still couldn't see up inside of that of that there too. So but I definitely wanted to make sure that I showed all of you that there too. So, and if I also want to mention to you, if you do have any questions or comments while you are here on the show, definitely jump into the chat box there and ask any of your questions or comments while we have some of our guests on the show with us here. Coming up here in just a few minutes, we are going to have on the show returning our friend Greg Peterson from the Urban Farm. Awesome, awesome. It's great to have him on. In fact, Greg Peterson, besides, a couple of friends who've been on the show like Chris and Kang and all of that, Greg Peterson is actually the first third-time guest on the Let's Get Growing show. So we're really looking forward to that. And then also here in just a couple of minutes too, we're going to bring on the show here for our Are You Following Me segment, Bowtie David from Bowtie Life in the Garden. I mean, how awesome is this too, to have one of our very own viewers of the show who's got a great channel and does a lot of great content joining with us here on the show today. I asked David to come join with us. He was happy to do so. So it's great. We're going to have a conversation with him here in just a minute. I did again want to mention we do have our Sunday edition of the show, as I was mentioning just a minute ago too, starting tomorrow again, same time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern. And tomorrow is the second Sunday of the month. And on the second Sunday of the month, we are blessed to have with us gardener Scott Wilson, master gardener, joining with us to answer all of your garden questions right there on the Let's Get Growing show on our Sunday edition. And then I also did want to mention too, next Sunday being the third Sunday of the month is also our book club. We have our book club, and this month's book club selection is Leave Your Troubles Behind by Karen Hugh. This is just a really, really great book. I've really, really loved this. And Karen is actually coming back on the show. She was a guest last year as well, too. But we wanted to feature her book on the show. It's just such a great, great book. I love talking about, the kind of utilizing plants and growing to kind of get away from life. You know what I mean? And to kind of get ourselves better from things that we're dealing with. And there's just so much stuff going on constantly in all of our lives, and our plants and our gardens can be great oases away from these sort of things and help us kind of regain our energy to go back into the world again and all of that. So I love this book. And then also I did want to mention real quick before we get moving here, because I want to get moving real quick here, definitely go and check out last week's show. We had on with us our good friend Kay Cottrell from Late Bloomer. She was on the show last week. I love having Kay around. She's one of my favorite people in the gardening world because she was one of the ones who really helped me get going with like interviewing and anything. She was one of the first YouTubers to actually invite me to her place and do some interviews and all of that. So that was a really great show. And then also last Sunday, I wanted to mention this too. Adam joined with us, so I made this thumbnail so everybody knows. Adam is one of our moderators for the chat box, and he joined with us like our friend Jay Dixon, our facilitator, did too a couple of weeks ago as well. So definitely go back and check out some of these shows so you can meet some of these great people helping us out with this live stream here. So real quick here, just going to make a real quick run through everybody. We do got to get moving on today. Like I said, I'm just running late and flying by around in here today. So let's see, definitely here, let's mention our good friend Jay again right here at the top of the show. Join with us from Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much, Jay, for being our facilitator. Jay does some awesome things. Keep an eye out there in the chat for any sort of links or anything that we might be talking about here as well too. So let's see, we got lots and lots of people join with us here too. What do we see here? Rick said no notification tonight. You didn't get a notification. Did you click the bell? If you got the bell, I hope you did. Maybe something's going on with YouTube. And of course, Bowtie's in there in the chat with everybody. Right on, right on. Rick's like, I'm here waiting. I know we got started. Everybody was already in here. Sherry, Chip, I can't wait to see what's up today. Awesome. Great. And let's see here. Dan Bailey joined with us here. Greetings from Des Moines. We're ready and waiting. Yeah, again, sorry everybody for for having a kind of a slow start there to getting everything going. Right on. Jennifer Bailey joining up with us here today too. Awesome. Look right on. Great to see everybody here. Let's see here. Make sure we're getting everybody in here before we get going. I know I'm running a little bit late here, so Jersey Girl, good to have you back on the show with us. Thanks for joining with us. Bernard, hello. Awesome. Thanks for joining with us here. Great to have you here with us on the show. Just running through here. I don't want to miss anybody. Rob joining us from the UK. Join us in the evening from the UK too. Thank you, Rob, for joining with us here. Adam, join with us. I see you there in the chat with everybody. Awesome. All right, everybody, let's get going, man. We got a show to get going here. I've got some great guests. We've got our first guest waiting in the wings right now to get going on the show. So we'll be right back here in just one moment and check out who we're following this week. Let's Get Growing is sponsored by IV Organic.
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with IV Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. IV Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
This is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop here with another trivia question. What is a jalapeno pepper called when it's dried? A. Ancho, B. Chipotle, C. Colorado, or D. Guajillo? We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
All right. You guys know what the answer is to this week's trivia question. If you do, definitely jump into our chat there and let us know if you know the answer there too. If you also have any questions or comments, definitely jump into the chat as well too. We might just feature them on the show, so definitely jump in there and ask all of your questions and all of that as well too. I love to hear questions, especially for our guests too. We love to hear your questions. Rob says Saturdays are not the same without Let's Get Growing Live. I love it, Rob. Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody, for all of your support as well, too, here on the show. That's so great to hear. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. All right, everybody. It's time for Are You Following Me?
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right. This week we are actually following someone from our very own chat most weeks. We've got Bowtie Life in the Garden join with us this week. Bowtie David, thank you so much for joining with me today.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. How are you doing?
Oh, we're doing good here. Been a busy morning.
Busy morning for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Lots of things to get working on in the garden, taking care of over there. You're in Florida, right?
Yes, we're in Destin, Florida, the Panhandle, but we're still Central Time.
Still Central Time, though? Right on. So tell us a little bit more about Bowtie Life in the Garden.
Well, yeah.
I love it. Here's the thing I'll mention too, real quick
Yeah.
before you actually get going too, because I love the bow tie and I love the whole thing because I've got my whole theme. People always mention my hats and all of that as well too. So I love the whole thing. We bring a little bit of character to our content.
Yep.
And you definitely do. So definitely tell us a little bit more about Bowtie Life in the Garden.
Well, I've always liked your hats. I have a collection of caps, but I have one hat that's that style. It's a black pinstripe. That makes it through the rotation and into the videos occasionally. But I do want to say I've got several people here in the chat. My brother Dan Bailey is in there, and his wife Donna. Hi, y'all. And of course, Mrs. Bowtie is in there. Jennifer Bailey is Mrs. Bowtie. And
there we go. Right on.
She's the magic behind everything that happens here. And then,
that's
of course,
amazing. Awesome.
Sherry Chamberlain and Bernard Dardar are really good friends from church that have joined us, and we may have someone else coming. Dan's actually in Des Moines, and
that's
I was just up there a couple months ago seeing them. But yeah, so we're just, and it's so funny because I haven't been watching you as long as I've been watching Gardner Scott, and I saw you on Gardner Scott, 3 months ago?
Oh, was it? Right on, yeah.
Was it about anyway? So I saw you there, and I was like, and you told your story. We were talking earlier. You told your story about the cucumber and your plants and everything, and I was like, oh my goodness, this guy is speaking my language, and I've really enjoyed your shows, your presentations, and it's very very measured, very level, very balanced, and
well, I appreciate it.
I appreciate it very much, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my channel. And it's just so important.
I find I think that's fine. What I find true kind of across the board, and really is, as you hear me talk about week after week, is that we really are trying to build community through gardening. Growing community through gardening. And I find that's kind of a similar thing, is that we're all just kind of got that same thing going on, looking for the same thing and doing that similar kind of, trying to keep things level and basically really on a mission to kind of make things as welcoming as possible for people who want to get into doing this just amazing, I don't even know what to call it, a pastime, a hobby, or sometimes it's a lifestyle, that sort of thing when it comes down to it. But really it's just about really making the best presentation possible to be welcoming to new people coming into this, right?
Well, and I think not only be welcoming, but like when I was starting out with my tomato, we'll talk about where I came from here in just a minute, but I remember I was watching a video from someone that I still watch on YouTube. but I watched with measured response. But anyway, he talked about how you've got to go out and top all your tomato plants because, you know, whatever they do it for. And so I jumped up and I ran out and topped about 10 tomato plants.
Oh
because, and some of them were, oh no, yeah. So they were indeterminates, which indeterminates, you know, we all know that they grow and grow, and they stopped growing and growing. And in fact, I saw one of the pictures. It's an important one you'll see here in a little bit, but you know, I stunted the growth on a lot of my plants that day. And then it's the way it's presented is like, oh, you got to go do this right now. And no, you know, just you sit back and you watch what nature does. I also tried to do a single leader on a determinate tomato, which a determinate tomato, of course, you want to let it grow as much as you can. And of course, stunted the growth of my determinate tomatoes too. And it was, it was a little bit of a mess. That was my first year of successful gardening.
Oh man, I'm telling you, and we go through all of that sort of stuff, and it is, you know, it is also in a way to how things can be presented sometimes. And I always do want to make sure that people do understand that, you know, things are very flexible in gardening.
Yeah.
You know, even topping the tomatoes off, it's going to, you know, it's a learning process. Really, in the long run, our first couple of gardens are really all just experimental gardens. The whole thing. You know, when it comes down to it, we've got to learn some lessons and figure some things out. So hopefully, you know, in the long run, we're, you know, there's more and more of us out there who are presenting good information and helping people figure things out the best.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Jay just said, "Yikes! You decapitated your tomatoes." Yep, I did.
I know. But that's exactly right. But, you know, it's just like our guest coming up here a little bit here in the show too. Greg says in the chat too, you know, hey, this is how we learn.
Yep.
And that's exactly right. You know, and again, too, gardens are pretty flexible. You know, I say pretty. There's some things, you know, but for the most part, they're really flexible. And that's things we have to know and understand when we're first getting gardening is that, you know, a lot of stuff that we're just learning, you know, it's a trial and error when it comes down to it. You know, we don't want to be discouraged by making certain mistakes, even if we are topping off our tomatoes. But here I did want to kind of share. You did share a couple of pictures with us here too. So let's get into talking about your garden story here. I see this first.
Before you put that up, you know, one of the things that I try to focus on our channel, and we were talking about, tell us about the channel, and I'm a longtime ADD diagnosed person. I was diagnosed about 30 years ago, and I took a lot of adult powered medications for a bunch of years and learned more natural ways to do things. But so because of that, I'm kind of one thing you'll notice about anything I do, I'm a very slow walk. I'll get there eventually, but really it takes me forever to get there on things. And so anyway, I don't know if Kip is around right now. He's an old friend of mine. He used to be manager at our local Ace Hardware where I worked at, but he gave me, and this reminds me of your cucumber story. He gave me a tomato plant. Go ahead and pop up that first picture though. And you can see some of the plants that I topped. And this was, you know, you're talking about small space gardening. This was our small space gardening.
Yeah. And for real, this is great.
It was a nightmare. And in fact, it became our property manager's nightmare. Over there on the left, you can see everything. In fact, she might be on here too. I don't know if she'll make it, but
you know, I think for the most part that, you know, maybe, you know, you're striving for just a little bit more healthier plants. But for the most part, everything looks organized to me. It looks pretty nice and decent for a container garden and all of that. But I love it, man. That's nice.
Well,
great.
Pull that back up again. I want to show you. If you look at that tomato plant growing up onto the top of the stairs up there, that's actually the tomato plant that my friend Kip gave me that got me started. That's the actual tomato plant that started everything. Perfect. And I started doing, you know, you snap the suckers off, stick them in dirt, and then about half of these other tomato plants came from that, and then came with all the different kinds of tomatoes. And I started learning what the determinants were and the indeterminants, and it's all been. Mrs. Bowtie says, "Oh, those were the days." I was in fear of getting evicted. We were. But Jerry Lynn was awesome. She was our property manager, and And
wow.
I'm still friends with all these people, of course, and she was very patient with us. Of course, that was COVID time. You know, the shelves at the grocery store were empty, and our tomatoes and corn was out there on our front porch.
Oh
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
Greg. Okay, I'm sorry. I have a note here about how you had gone to college and gotten low grades. And I have a note here. Actually, I'm going to show you here. It says Greg Peterson, ADD question mark. Can you see that? I had actually written that on there. And especially when he said that he would come back and find it with things that he found his interests. Yeah. And that's so that is so important. You really caught my attention. That was the first podcast of yours I watched, is the one that you had with the two ladies, Judith and Wendy, and they talked about the steam juicer. That was an excellent episode. But oh my goodness, yes, exactly, and everything you're saying, Greg. If you're not going to stick around for Greg, you're going to miss out, because
he's great. He's great. He's one of my favorites from a long time back.
Oh, and we were talking about that level approach, that very measured approach. Don't panic.
Yep, exactly.
And Greg has been in the embodiment of that for a dozen years now or more.
And really coming from, and I think one of the things I really liked about a lot of his content too, and we're all talking about Greg before he gets on here too, but
he could defend himself.
but he was really growing out of a harsh environment. I was always fascinated with a few different people I got to follow out of the Phoenix area who were growing and doing things, and Greg was one of them, and I love that too as well. So really kind of helping me figure out ways of growing in harsher and more hotter environments and all of that. But anyways, so you started there. So that's kind of how your garden started. Yeah. Let's see here. So you did have one other picture.
Yeah, and
here.
and this is where we are now. We finally bought a house. We took 4 years looking for a house. We found this house. That's my raised beds, and that superstructure over there actually holds my shade cloth up during the summer. And because we're in Florida, we got a lot of sun, and we have to have it. But you can see the arbors, and you're always talking about going vertical, and we have a 1/4 acre. But leave this up for just a second, because when we were looking at houses, on 1/8 of an acre that had barely any yard, and it almost sounds like some of your area. But one house we looked at, we had about 8 feet down the south side of the house, and we were considering it, and I actually designed these beds not with the 4-foot width, but with a 2-foot width for that property. And this property actually, God literally dropped this place into our laps. In fact, it was Friday night. Mrs. Bowtie we were sitting there watching TV, and of course Zillow pops up, and open house. And so we bought it. That was back when the market was, going crazy around here.
Yeah. That's just amazing. Look at this again. Those beds are just awesome. I love the color, the creativity. They just kind of wind through, but this structure, and I can see in the background, it looks like you got some panels there and things like that as well. But the structure is perfect. Look at all the vertical and hanging and things you can do as well if you need
Tons of stuff. Yeah, so much versatility. Yeah,
exactly. That's just the exact word I was just going to say. It just brings a massive amount of versatility to what you're going to be able to do and grow in that space. That's just really, really great. I saw the picture when you sent that to me. I was like, that's just fantastic.
And that's
both of them though too. I love both of them, because again too, coming from that idea, apartment gardening, that's where I started.
Exactly.
Mine was 2 floors up. It's very similar, but I was on the balcony kind of there, 2 floors up, and doing my cucumber off of that was when I first got started in an apartment very similar to what you had there as well. And so, I just love it, getting started there, being able to move on and do things and be really versatile and creative with the space that you have and
absolutely
and do things. That's just really great.
Yeah.
Right on, right on. Real quick here before we get moving, I do want to ask you about some of these about your garden, what you're growing there. You're growing out of Florida. So, I mean, what are some of these main things you're growing out of Florida? What are some of your favorite things you're putting in your garden each year?
Oh my goodness. I'm putting so much out there. In fact, our first year in this house, we had 95 cultivars of 49 crops.
Right.
I mean, the standard tomatoes and beans, and I've got a 16-foot cattle panel trellis out there with beans, and okra is one of our big things we're harvesting right now. It has just been, you grow okra, hill country red okra. They grow tall. My first year, they grew 17 feet tall, and big round things about 4 inches tall, still perfectly edible. And that's our harvest now. But I mean, we got blueberries, blackberries, strawberries, which we're doing stuff for the strawberries coming up this winter. We'll be doing a lot of moving around of stuff for next year, because I've learned a few things. But I want to mention Serena, and she's in here a lot. She commented that about autism and Asperger and various challenges.
Yeah.
And so growing up, of course, I was ADD. And in fact, earlier, my brother said that I taught them about ADHD and how to deal with me, because I was in trouble. But, you're growing up like that, and you know something's wrong, but you can't tell what's wrong. And this is really, the garden has just helped me grasp life, I guess is the best way to say it, and just learning to slow down. And the cool thing about the garden is, you grow stuff, and you figure things out, and sometimes, and you have a lot of failure. Well, and I'm trying to take the word failure out, because I'm not seeing them as failure anymore.
Learning opportunities.
Exactly. You must have watched my last video.
That's right.
Anyway, so and just learning how to have peace with where you're at, and I can look back now and see some of the challenges that I've had, and I've had some real struggles, and looking back, it's really been. I like to say that my ADHD is not a disability; it's been a gift from God, and there's a lot of things that have happened in my life that wouldn't have happened. People I've known and things I've done, and just amazing parts of my personal story that have built who I am. Good Lord.
And I think that's true about, and as you say about gardening, and when it's so many of these treasures and things that we get from growing our gardens, but one of them is, and I mentioned this as I was talking about our book selection for this month's book club, talking about Karen Hughes' book, Leave Your Troubles Behind, where she, she's got a great book of all these cool plant activities, and just kind of explanations and talking about this sort of thing, and how we utilize our gardens to kind of center ourselves and peace and all of that. And it works in so many ways, especially as you're talking about with with what you're talking about too, is when we have whatever it is that's our, whatever, I've got my own personal afflictions, and, whatever it is for any of us, I find that all of the stories I hear, the more and more I get to talk to people, I'm hearing the same thing, is about no matter what people are dealing with. And it just surprises me each and every new thing I get to hear about that gets added onto the list, but how they can go into their garden space. And that just does so much to help them care for themselves.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? The garden is helping you care for yourself in a way to where you can change your perspective, because that's how it worked for me. When I got into my garden and all of that, and early on, I was dealing with a lot of stuff, I dealt and done things without gardening for many years and all of that, and knew that there was a difference between when I was taking care of plants and when I wasn't. And when I got into my garden the next time, it really did. I know that was what helped me change my perspective, because I could have become a very angry person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's so
easy. You know what I mean? That's where
it is so easy. Yeah.
It is. Yeah. I could have become a very angry person. And my garden, I think, helped save me at a time that was so important for that.
Absolutely. And Mrs. Bowtie just reminded me, we're growing loofah like crazy, and watermelon. Loofah, we're replacing zucchini with the loofah. You harvest them about that big around.
Nice and young again, too. Like I was talking about the cucumbers.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep. So,
it's the thing about those. A lot of people don't understand, especially newer gardeners, as they're
mm-hmm.
doing that, is that a lot of those plants, especially those viners, loofahs, cucumbers, even squash, all of that, they're always really good. And some of them summer squash or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
when they're younger and nice and just soft, and the seeds haven't had a chance to form yet, that sort of thing. But yeah, I love it.
Well, I've got a loofah plant that's about 60 feet long across the back of the property. It is massive.
yeah. I ended up finally last year having my first successful loofahs, and I ended up with so many little loofah sponges and everything. I didn't grow them this year. But I think I will, just to do it. But I'm doing something else in the space that I was growing loofah last year, so I'm thinking maybe I'll try another space. But I do like the plants because they just get so big and cool, and I love the vines. They're just
I've got a 17-foot tall stump from a massive tree. It's about 30 inches across. That we just chopped off, and it was starting to grow out of branch. I just noticed this morning. I went out there to cut some of the grass, and I looked up, and the loofah has taken over the whole stump, and it's killed the tree itself. All the little branches that were coming out are all brown, and so the loofah is aggressive
again. And I was talking about this last week, and it was kind of one of the reasons why I wanted to get in and do the introduction for this week's show and talk about those cucumbers, because they've really overtaken all of that, and they'll reach out and grab things and choke them out and do all sorts of stuff. Vining beans are another one that are really famous for just pulling. I had some beans, vining beans that pulled a whole section of corn down one year. Just took it over and pulled it all down. Corn, of all things.
Thank God
I couldn't believe
it. Thank God they're all annuals. Greg just said, and loofah flowers are great too. Oh my, we actually have a bee box, but bees like crazy. Oh my goodness, the flowers, massive amounts of flowers. I actually have 5 loofah vines growing on a double 16-foot cattle panel trellis out there, which I just wanted to see what it would do.
It's our version of Audrey too, Little Shop of Horrors. I love the mention, because I'm sure Jennifer doesn't know about, or even yourself maybe, that Little Shop of Horrors is a big show and movie for us here on the channel.
Yeah.
I
didn't know that.
Each and every Halloween for the last 4 or 5 Halloweens, we get together for a Little Shop of Horrors live stream.
I didn't know that.
Where we watch the original. We watch the original.
Nice.
The original Little Shop of Horrors, because it's a public movie, so we can watch it, and then we play a play version, a theatrical version of the Little Shop of Horrors as well, and just kind of hang out for Halloween. It's just kind of a fun hangout. I
love it.
So it's one of our favorite things. I love hearing the reference to Audrey. That's great.
I love it.
And real quick, before we get you going here, though, too, I did want to mention, because you did put in your wonderful background here, as we did mention before the show. I just wanted to mention everybody else, too, because I know they're noticing as well. That just wonderful looking pothos you got there behind you. It's just awesome there. And as I've told everybody, and they know here on the show, too, I've got my pothos here, which I've had for, I think, 27 years or so. I think about 27 years I've had that, I think.
I've got you beat on that.
Really?
My mom.
Yeah.
In fact, this is part of my story. My mom actually gave me the cuttings for this plant second year of college. So that would have been 86 that she gave me the cuttings for this plant. Then I actually have several pots of it now, and I've been growing it. We've actually killed it. I killed it once in college, completely down to a 1/4 inch of a nub of green left in college. And then when we went on an out of country trip for a month and a half, we came back and found all of them just black and drippy.
Yeah.
There you go.
Isn't that great? I love it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, exactly. And as Jay mentions too, heritage plants from the
Yep.
family, because everybody who knows my story too about even all of my plants. In fact, the story comes from this one right here. The spider plant
Yeah.
was mine that I got a cutting from my mom
There you go.
and grew, but not this original spider plant here, not this one. That one was long gone. I never was able to kind of keep and hold on to that one, but that's how I got my whole plant life started, was cuttings from mom. Right
That's
on,
awesome.
right on, right on. Both David, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining with me here, putting off with the start of this crazy show
Oh, it's
today.
my honor. Hey, I'm used to it. That's the way my whole life goes.
It really is for me. I mean, for most people who don't get to see the behind the scenes of my life, that's really what it is. I'm a scramble and go type of person, and usually you get scramble and get started too when it comes to doing this. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I got all ready. I mean, I was ready all the way up to getting ready to click start and go live when I noticed right up in the corner it showed the wrong one, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. And I was like, that's why I'm not seeing anybody. And then I had to restart everything. Oh, what a start, but I'm
I
glad
stream
that we
our
got everything going anyways.
I stream our Sunday service every Sunday morning, and I've experienced similar things. It's like, oh my goodness, why did I do that?
It was bound to happen eventually, right?
That's right.
Exactly. You can't do something live like this, you know what I mean? Where, there's certain things that you got to click. There's certain things that I got to happen in a certain order, where
Yeah.
things just kind of get messed up and jumbled and put out of order. And that's just kind of where we are today. But that's awesome, man. And really, I just really great to talk to you and to
Yeah.
really get to know a little bit more about your garden story there in a little bit too, and really kind of took us in that. That's one of the things I love about conversations and getting in there, is kind of digging into some of that stuff as well too. And I'm sure that we'll probably dig in a little bit more as we get to talking to Greg just a little bit later on in the show. But to bring in that sort of stuff when it comes to gardening, man, we're all kind of dealing with some stuff, and a garden can be a great escape and a great place to, not only that, but if everybody remember looking back on that picture and all of that too, is the level of creativity and these sort of things we get to dig out from inside of ourselves, you know what I mean, and kind of awaken and allow to be, you know what I mean, that is because of our gardens and all of that. And just so great to hear about you and your story as well.
Well, I'm honored to be here. When you asked me, I thought it was a very exciting day. I got asked by a company to use one of my videos, and this is all, it all happened in one day. And now
Really?
Greg has asked me if I'd like to be on his podcast. I would be most honored.
That's right.
I have enjoyed listening. I've listened to all of your interviews with Enoch here. In fact,
yeah. All right.
yeah.
Excellent. That's awesome.
Yeah, go ahead.
So definitely be jumping in there and drop in some of those questions
Yeah.
for Greg and all of that, and then maybe we'll get Greg to hold on a little bit after the show and maybe talk to him about that podcast or something like that, though. But it's just really wonderful to have you here, and again, too, someone who's watching and participating and supporting our show. I can't thank you enough for all the support that you give us and our channel and our show and everything.
I try. And and Mrs. Bowtie says, thank you for having me too. This is quite an honor. This is a very big honor.
Yes, exactly. And definitely, and thank you to your family as well too. That's another thing. We had our good friend and moderator Adam on last week.
I know
his family showed up and showed up too. So, and I love to see that when everybody's got great family support as well too. So, thanks to your family as well for jumping in here and participating in the show. And
if our grandkids are watching, hey to you too, kids. Elena and Emerson might be watching. I don't know.
Big shout out to all of you as well too. That's so awesome. And again, thank you so much for joining with us. We'll definitely have to look for maybe another opportunity to get you back on, maybe for a Sunday show or something like that. We'll dig into some of this talk about that stuff, because I think it's really, really important stuff. And I think there's just so much more to be talked about when it comes to that. So thanks again, David.
Anytime, brother.
All right. Excellent. All right. We'll be right back right here in just a moment. Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals. And our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is B. Chili peppers are often given different names when they're dried versus when they're fresh. A dried jalapeno pepper is called a chipotle pepper. A dried poblano is called an ancho. A dried Anaheim is called a Colorado. And a dried Mirasol is called a guajillo. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
All right, everybody. Did you get the answer to Sarah's trivia question this week? Talking about dried peppers. Man, I love some anchos. One of my favorite plants and my favorite group of plants that I grow, which ended up being a disaster this year, as I just found out. As I was just noticing, because we're just starting to get the fruits growing off of there, and something happened. With the seed I got, and I'm gonna have to look back because I know I bought new seed from somewhere. So whatever happened, I don't know with their seed, but all my plants, and they're all the same. They're growing a funky little cross of something. And it's kind of this weird funky cross that some peppers will do if they're just not kind of, I don't know, they just do this weird looking, kind of funky looking look. But that's kind of what I got with those and all three of them. So I'm not going to have any anchos off of my poblano plants. In fact, I usually grow this grouping of three of them that we call our tres amigos poblanos. And my tres amigos poblanos are not poblanos this year. So I don't know when it comes to that. We're not going to get any anchos and all of that. So we'll have to try that. So I hope you guys got the answer to that trivia question there. And again, I want to thank everybody for joining with us today. I did see a couple here joining in with us here as well, too. I wanted to mention here real quick. Where was it? Okay, here. Grows it Alaska. Thank you for joining with us here. And as well, too, I saw someone else. I know Connie joined with us as well. And let's see here. Okay, I guess I'm missing it here. Anyways, we got to get moving on. We're running a little bit late today, as I mentioned just before, too, for anybody who's just joining us now. Kind of had a funky start to the show. I ended up doing something I've never done before. Our program has different studios for different shows that we do, and so Saturday show has one studio, Sunday show has another studio, and the first time ever, because it goes in the order of how I put them in. So I put Saturday in first, and then I put Sunday. So Sunday was the first one on top. So today I went in there and I clicked the top one, went right in it, got ready to go right up to when I was about to go live, and then just noticed right at the very last second I was in the wrong studio. I was about to go live on the wrong live stream. And I ended up having to restart everything because going back into the other studio, it wasn't reading the camera right. And we ended up having to restart all of everything. So we got to a funky start to get started with today. So just a little funky get up for us today. But you know what? We're just kind of growing along with it all today. And so again, I want to thank all of you too. And if you are here with us right now and you do have any questions or comments or anything, definitely jump into the chat there. We just might feature it on the show, especially with our guest we got coming up, because we got a really, really awesome guest returning to the show for the first time, our first guest on the Let's Get Growing show for the third appearance, our first third appearance on the show. So everybody, let's go ahead and get started with our featured guest.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right. Join with us here on the Let's Get Growing show for the third time.
Wow, that was fun.
Mr. Farmer Greg Peterson from the Urban Farm.
Well, thank you for having me for the third time. That's awesome.
Yeah, excellent. It's great to have you back. I was hoping to find an opportunity here coming up soon to get you back on the show. We've had a lot of great people on the show so far this year, and I was thinking, man, we had Greg on twice last year. We got to get him in soon.
Well, I always have something to talk about.
I know.
Especially when it comes to food.
I know. I was like,
our own.
Exactly. I know, because when you sent me a message earlier in the week and you were like, topics, I was like, topics? Do we really need topics? I mean, we talk about anything. Let's just get started, right? When it comes down to it, it's gardening. But anyways, you sent me some great stuff to talk about. So anyways, again, too, you are joining us from last season. So if anybody who's watching the show right now hasn't met Greg, you can always go back and check our older episodes of Greg, or check out a link below too to the Urban Farm as well, and check out Greg's podcast, The Urban Farm. But we're catching up from last year, man. You were growing some great stuff in a new gardening space, pretty much.
Yeah.
So how are things growing this year in the garden?
Wow. So a couple of cool things that happened. So actually, let me give people a little bit of background.
Okay, let's do that.
I grew up and spent 54 years in the same neighborhood in Phoenix, Arizona.
Yep, I was mentioning
54 years is how much, and I was within a 5-mile radius of this neighborhood, in this space, and I lived in my house for 32 years.
Wow, I'm just at 12, and I've never been in a place that long before. And at 12, that seems like a long time. I can't imagine that.
Yeah. So I had growing food down to a science in Phoenix. In fact, my yard in Phoenix, we used to call it, and still call it, the new owners call it, an old growth food forest. Mm-hmm. Because what happens in the space is things go to seed. The nature spreads the seeds. You guys were talking about how great nature is. Nature spreads the seeds, and then plants come up, right?
Yep, exactly.
It's just magic. It just happens that way when we let it be. Just let nature be.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And that's kind of really, in a way, as we do start to formulate and design or set up and create, just what we're doing, our techniques for gardening and all of that. That's always the great basis for whatever we do moving forward, is what does nature do? Always fall back to nature. If nature isn't just doing it and you're doing it, fall back to what does nature do and what you're planning to do.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and that's what permaculture is all about. Permaculture, I like to call the art and science of working with nature. How do we work in the flow of nature rather than against nature? Because, we human beings, I got news for you, human beings. You don't know how to do it better than nature.
That's right.
Nature knows best. Nature will always nature's always going to bat last as well.
Yep, exactly.
Which means nature's going to win. So when we get smart and start following natural systems, mm-hmm. I think we're going to be a whole lot better off. So that's kind of my background. About 10 years ago, I was still living in Phoenix, and about 10 years ago, I got a wild hair, and it's like, I want to go someplace quiet. I'm
Yeah.
63 years old. 10 years ago, I was 53 years old. And I discovered what quiet was because I spent some time away from Phoenix, just, a couple of months.
Yeah.
And it was quiet. So I said to my partner, Heidi, I want to go someplace quiet. And she's a yoga teacher. All her yoga students are in Phoenix. So we can't leave
makes
Phoenix. Can't leave Phoenix
Yeah.
until COVID hits.
Mm-hmm.
And she put all of her classes online during COVID. And she's been teaching online since. And then she said, where do you want to move? I was thinking we were moving to Northern Arizona. And she comes up with Asheville, North Carolina. And it's like, what are you, crazy? That's on the other side of the world. Remember, 54 years in the same 5 mile radius.
Exactly, right?
Asking me to move that far. So we came and visited in
You got to be careful what you're asking for, right?
Right. Summer of 22. Yeah, summer of 22, we came and visited.
Yeah.
And by December of 22, we'd found the 4 acres. You're seeing my front yard here in the background. We found this 4 acres. And so we've been here 2 years, 3 months. And now to your question.
There you go. Yeah. I was going to say last year you were just there about a year. So you were kind of just, I think it was what, technically your second year garden, was it last year? Or wasn't
it was
quite.
So we arrived in April,
but it was kind of like you just were barely doing anything the first year, right?
Exactly. We
so
arrived
the second
in
year
April,
wasn't really, but it was.
Yeah,
if I remember right. Exactly.
You're right on. Last year was my first real garden.
Yeah.
The first year interestingly enough, we visited the nursery to buy garden starts before we went to the grocery store. We arrived on Friday. On Sunday, we were returning the U-Haul truck that we used to move, and there was a nursery across the street. So we went in and we bought plant starts. So this is a little, and
first things first.
Exactly, man, right? And so our first garden, it was a bit of a epic failure. Just because 54 years in Phoenix, I know how to grow in the heat. Exactly. I have no idea how to grow here. In fact, one of the things I learned over the past, you asked me for how things are going. One of the things I learned is Phoenix doesn't have pest pressure.
Right. Huh?
I mean, there's a few pests in Phoenix, but they're like on a scale of 1 to 10, they're like a 0.02.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pest pressure here is like a 9. I'm learning all about pests and
oh my, yeah. and a wide range of them too, right?
And a huge wide range of them. But I'm learning. So last year was technically our second garden, and so one of the things I did, I don't know if you remember, I planted 160 fruit trees and berry bushes last summer.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. I was going to ask you, we're going to talk about that for sure too.
And 90 of them were elderberries, so we could talk about that. But,
yeah.
What I did when I plant a fruit tree, because I do the Urban Farm Fruit Tree Program in Phoenix, still do it. This is our 25th year. I teach people how to grow fruit trees, really how to grow fruit trees, but how to grow fruit trees in the desert. And when we plant a fruit tree, we put in 60% planting mix into the hole. We put in 2 pounds of azomite, 2 pounds of worm castings, 2 ounces of mycorrhiza, and 2 pounds of organic fertilizer. And that gets all mixed up in the wheelbarrow, and then we plant the tree.
Yeah.
So we have done a lot to supplement that tree holes to give the tree its best success.
Exactly.
I've always bought worm castings because I need them in bulk. Last summer, I'd been growing worms for a year and been harvesting worm castings for a year.
Yeah.
Little did I know that there were dozens of tomato seeds in those worm castings. So in the rows of the 160 fruit trees that we planted in those rows, we got about 30 wild grown tomato plants
Mhm.
And last August, September, and October, we were harvesting 15 to 20 pounds of tomatoes a week.
Wow.
So that was a huge success. And they were the ones that were growing wild out in my fruit tree orchard.
Amazing.
The ones that I had in pots, they were.
Exactly. And so great that, and I showed everybody at the beginning of the show too, my I did a compost sifting that I do, kind of where I have like an outdoor, it's kind of like a cold compost worm bin outdoor type of thing, just all sorts of stuff that just kind of go in there. And then once a year I sift through it, and then I use it to kind of mix with some recycled soil and do some topping of containers and things.
Yeah.
And man, I ended up with in fact, they're lemon cucumbers
Oh, nice.
popping up all over too. And luckily it was a good heirloom variety of lemon cucumbers that it happened with too. So I got all good true fruit and popping up all over the place, but they're taking over some stuff everywhere. And it's hard to pull them down and take them out because I love the cucumbers, but at the same time, I want to grow some other things because they can be really kind of not so nice neighbors, right? But it's just great though how well those plants grow versus the other ones that are overgrown in the containers,
right?
The other side of the patio.
So what I did last year with 15 to 20 pounds of tomatoes a week, I put a table in my driveway. I have about 30 houses down the street, and I said, free organic tomatoes. I made some friends.
Oh, that's the way to do it right there.
Yeah.
And that's how I do it. I've actually got little baskets and things right outside that I leave stuff just kind of there, but I leave it in a place that's kind of like, if someone feels like they're taking something, it's kind of like they can be sneaky about it. So I leave it somewhere where they can feel like they're being sneaky, so they don't feel like they're just taking something from me. So I do it purposely. So here you go.
Yeah.
It just, and there's I got to take this and all that sort of stuff, but I keep it away in the right place. So someone can just kind of grab it without feeling like they're doing whatever. But I have it out there so I can put all my extras out there for people because I live right on an alleyway. So people are walking by all the time.
Oh, nice.
I also found that doing that, and if I harvest and I do that and it's out there, and again, too, it's somewhere there in the alley where people are just walking by and they don't feel like it's a big deal and they can just grab things. And then it also keeps people from just pulling them off the plants too.
Oh, yes.
There's some over here for me, so I don't have to just take them off the plants.
Yeah. Way cool. So year 3.
Year three now.
This is year 3.
So now you've kind of expanded a bit more now, right? Or you're at least going to delve into things you really haven't tried, right?
Yeah, like potatoes.
Yes.
Potatoes are virtually impossible to grow in the desert.
Yeah.
They're an advanced vegetable in the desert. 50 pounds.
50
I grew
pounds.
50 pounds this year. Now it's like, what do I got to do? What am I going to do with 50 pounds of potatoes? So I tried dehydrating some.
Yeah.
So I went through the process of dehydrating potatoes and figured that out.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I'm probably going to can them. But interestingly, potatoes, if you dehydrate them or can them, they need to be blanched first.
Oh, okay.
Did not know that.
There's some things I knew. I can't remember what it is, but I know there's a few things that kind of have that. I didn't know about potatoes though.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's good. Yeah, potatoes. We got a ton. In fact, we're about to pull out of my friend's garden space that we grow out of, and then I've got some growing of the same variety that we planted over here. Plants haven't quite died off yet on the ones in mine, but they have over his place. We're gonna go pull those out, see what they look like, and then probably another week or two we'll probably get after the ones I've got here. But there's potatoes, and again too, fun in gardening when it comes down to it, because potatoes are inexpensive, right? But again, not just fun in gardening because they're inexpensive, but also variety. Because I love to go and grab and get a few cool little varieties that you can't get at stores and all of that as well too, that you can grow in your garden spaces and all of that. But again too, nothing more fun than pulling, it's like what would you like digging treasure, right?
Yep.
Digging for little golden nuggets or whatever, right? So you don't know what you're going to get. And I've always said this for years because I grew potatoes out of containers for years.
Oh,
Which
wow.
I think I'm going to try again next year
Mhm.
because it's been a few years since I've done it. But I used to tell everybody it's always great. You get these big, beautiful plants. They look wonderful, and some of them, you know, if you got some good varieties, they'll produce a lot of good potato flowers, you
Yep.
know, and so it just look beautiful. But they're root crops, and you don't know what you're going to get from a beautiful plant until you start pulling those things up out of the ground.
Exactly. And I actually tried 4 different ways to grow potatoes this year.
Okay, right on.
To, you know, kind of get a sense of which was the
Yeah,
best. And
we've all got to go through the potato tests. They're fun. It's
Yeah.
fun too.
Yeah, there you go.
Did you try a tower type of thing?
I did.
Yeah.
So I tried 15-gallon tree tubs.
Okay, there you go.
All right. So I had 3 15-gallon tree tubs. I tried 2. It's tower-like. What I did is I took welded wire fencing.
Okay.
And made a 2-foot diameter cylinder, and I grew in there.
All right, perfect.
And then I grew in stock tanks. I have a pretty good slope on my yard.
Okay.
And so in order to level the backyard, we embedded some stock tanks on the slope and filled the upside with woody mulch. And so those stock tanks. So of the 3, which do you think was the best?
I want to say the stock tanks being so
Ding,
big
ding, ding,
and
ding,
all
ding,
that,
ding.
for sure.
Exactly.
I mean, of course, anything you're getting is closer to in-ground growing with the amount of root space that you can allow with a bigger sized container like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, my question would be then too, is you're growing more than one tuber, right?
Oh yeah.
So, I guess my question would be more so in the 15-gallon tree pot.
You know, so
how many were you putting in those?
Oh God, I don't know. So I am a lazy gardener, a lazy farmer.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
I like to do things in the yard where I set it and forget it.
I've done plenty of that stuff too.
Yeah, the lesson I learned over last year's potatoes is when I harvested them in September. It was too late. Mostly I got mush.
Oh, yeah.
So this year I harvested them in time.
Got them at the right time. Perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. A little timing is good on those. Yeah, I've grown mine in containers. This year I finally get to grow some. Well, I grew some in ground, and when I do that, maybe I'd put like one again to kind of just like I've got a tuber, you know, from some I was doing some containers, so I'd throw like one over here in the ground over there somewhere.
Exactly.
And let it grow. Do that sort of thing. Never really did like in ground like I've done this year, where I kind of put them in and did some rows of some different varieties and trying all of that. But last year I actually, because of doing that, where you take and just put one over somewhere, set it and forget it, totally forget it, because I didn't even harvest it. And then the next year it grows amongst a bunch of other stuff I'm growing, and I didn't even notice it. I had a volunteer potato until I noticed the dead plant as I was pulling some other plants, because it was in a bunch of other stuff growing. And man, I pulled out some of the best potatoes I'd ever grown from that thing too before too. Some big fat ones too. They were reds too, big fat reds. I was like, man, that's just great. But totally volunteers too, because I just threw those out like that.
So Jay and Serena are talking about pesto and basil. I planted this year. I planted 3 basil plants, but last year I planted 3 basil plants in a 15-gallon tub, and I let them go to seed. And this year they came back in that same 15-gallon tub.
Oh, great. Yeah.
And I've made 10 half pints of pesto, which I'd never done before. Here's
That's
what's
all.
happening. I'm starting to get things growing, and all of a sudden I have to figure out what to do with a plethora of stuff.
You start getting creative when it comes to how you're storing or what you're preparing, even for
Yeah,
even your meals
exactly.
start changing a little bit because you're
Well, my goal is, and it's happening, is like, how many different things can I have in each meal that I grew myself? Because
yeah.
my goal in moving here
Mhm.
was figure out how much of our own food we could grow.
Exactly.
And
And you got
Jay said something up a little while ago. Is a root cellar a possibility? Absolutely. In fact, the
Mhm.
cool thing about this house is
I
I
was
have
gonna
an
mention that one.
upstairs garage
Yep.
and I have a downstairs garage. And the downstairs garage has dirt on 3 sides. It's
Okay.
embedded in the mountainside,
Alright.
and it faces north.
Alright.
So, and I've been tracking the temperatures down there, and it's root cellar temps down there, which is pretty dang cool.
That's great, great. So it's gonna be perfect for storage and what you need to do
Yeah.
when it comes to all of that. Yeah, you're gonna have things set, man. I'm telling you, all that good space. North Carolina, though. I mean, everybody moves to North Carolina. Everybody in the
Everybody.
gardening space, in the gardening
Oh,
space. I
there
mean,
you go.
if you're moving and going somewhere, they go to
Well,
North
let me
Carolina.
tell you something. 4.7 million people in Phoenix, and I
Just
worked for
great stuff.
tirelessly for decades
Yeah.
to figure out the local food system and get people inspired and yada yada, right?
Mhm.
So I'm on my trip to vet this property that we bought in December of 22, and I saw 2 different billboards. One said, get your local compost from us," on a billboard in a
Oh, wow.
town that has 100,000 people. The second billboard said, "Your local farmers market is open. Download the app." So I'm stepping into this place where I've been pushing this ball uphill for so long in Phoenix,
Yeah.
Arizona, and I
Yeah.
step here and it's already created. There's
That ball's been rolling.
right.
You're
There's
yeah.
a nonprofit here called ASAP, Appalachian Sustainable Agriculture Program.
Oh,
Been
nice.
around for 20 years. They have over 200 members,
Oh,
and
great.
they're supporting small farms. It's like, oh my God, I just came home. Maybe that's the reason why gardeners
Mhm.
and growers are moving here, because it's the
Yeah.
food scene, the local
Definitely a
grow.
lot. Yeah, definitely a lot though too. I notice in the homesteading community as well
Yeah.
too. It's just lots of good growing land
Oh
for all
yeah.
of that sort of stuff and just great gardens, man. And then, it makes a great attraction. I might have to check it out someday myself too.
There you go. But you're in the Pacific
Tell you,
Northwest.
I love it here. I love it here, but
Yeah.
the stress and strain, and this is where, as I mentioned before too, one of the reasons why I latched on to you and your content years and years ago was because you were growing out of Phoenix.
Mm.
And for me, I was, learning to grow in this Southern Oregon area, which most people would think, oh, Pacific Northwest, green,
Oh
rainy,
yeah.
all of that sort of stuff. But
Mm-mm.
I'm more south, and I'm not only that, I'm inland in this bowl of a valley, and our summers get scorching. And as things and the weather and climate has been changing over these years, and has changed massively in the 12 years I've lived here, since
Yeah.
the first summers I gardened here to the summers I'm gardening now. It's crazy. The heat, it's just wild. I feel like I'm in a Phoenix growing kind of conditions and all of that, and
Imagine
in
if it's
times it's like I kind of wish I had a little bit more climatic growing sometimes now,
yeah.
more, back to what it used to be for me. So I kind of like, oh man, I wish,
Well,
but I still
with
love it
those,
here though. I
yeah,
still love
with those changes, imagine what it's like in Phoenix.
I know.
We
It's
had
just
Phoenix. I saw a list of high temps in Phoenix in July.
mhm.
10 days ago?
Yeah.
The lowest high temperature was 109. The highest high temperature
Wow.
was
Yeah.
118. So the high temps were between 109 and 118. And I love
Yeah.
the heat. I absolutely love the heat. So that,
Oh,
that
I'm a
kind of
heat
heat
lover
never
too.
bothered me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a heat lover too. It does kind of get a little weary when you're, week and a half into 100 plus temperatures, and you're like, oh, and you're just like, oh, come on now.
Week and a half.
It's cool.
A week and a half.
I know for you is a little different, but for us
It's
here,
like
yeah.
3.5 months.
I know, but it's just we're like, okay, yeah, but I love the heat. I'm out there. I love sweating in this summer sun. Just one podcast I was on a while back ago, Seedy and Shady podcast. They asked me if I was a plant in my garden, which plant would I be?
Ooh,
And I
ooh, I know the answer to that, but go.
Yeah, my answer was a sunflower. Because I love the sun, I love the heat, I love, and they're the one plant that's in the garden that when the heats get at those temperatures and everything else is kind of like in the midday, the sunflower's facing the sun and just out gloriously like all day.
Yeah.
And that's me. That's me.
Nice.
How about you? Which one would you be?
Desert gold peach, baby.
Oh, delicious peaches. I just had my first really good one. I've tried so many so far this year. I just had my first good one last night.
Did you buy it or did you grow it?
I got it from a farmer's market.
Okay. Here's the problem.
Not the ones I grow. Mine haven't. I got a little frost peach. They're little smaller ones, and they'll probably be ripening up maybe in another, say, couple weeks.
Yeah, those are the best ones. When you walk up to a peach tree and you grab a peach and it falls off in your hand and it gives just a little bit and you take a bite and it splashes down the front of your shirt.
Yes.
You will, and your toes tingle.
Yep.
You will never buy a store-bought peach again. I've been spoiled. I've absolutely been spoiled. So I cannot wait. I cannot wait for my peaches to arrive here.
I just want to go through like the South or whatever and just drive through peach places and try all different varieties and just do a tour of different peaches and try as many different varieties of them when they're in perfect season. It's literally one of my favorite tree fruits for sure.
Right?
Just love peaches.
Nice.
And like you're saying too about having them splash out, the one I had, it was so good and it was perfect. And I had tried a few before from a couple of other places, but this one was so good and it splashed out right on front of my shirt. And I just happened to be wearing a white shirt and I was like, darn it.
Well, my friend Jolene Cootie in Phoenix.
Yeah.
You know what she calls these kind of peaches?
What's that?
Bend over peaches. You have to bend over to eat them.
Yes, you gotta do it. You gotta do it. You gotta remember that too. And again, I certainly didn't because I was like, oh, and I looked down and was like, oh no.
So
right on.
Somebody asked earlier what I do with all the elderberry fruit.
I was just actually going to get to that. Actually, yep. Right here, Grows at Alaska asked, "What did you do with all that elderberry fruit?" Because that was one of my questions too. Because I was, in our last conversation, we were talking a lot about that. Because that was kind of a goal of yours was to actually kind of start maybe a little bit of an elderberry farm, and because there isn't that many elderberries grown here in
the country. Yeah. So here's the backstory. I have Samara Price on the podcast in December of 2022. So and I'm interviewing her, and she is a elderberry product maker here in town. I said, "Where do you get your elderberries?" And she says, "Well, I get a few here and a few there, but most of them come from Europe." And I was, what? Turns out that over 90% of our elderberries come from Europe in this country.
Oh, wow.
There is a huge opportunity. So in that moment where I said to her, "Where do you get your elderberries?" She said, "Well, most of them come from Europe." I said, "Well, hell, I can grow elderberries."
I know.
Didn't have a clue how to do it.
I know.
But so
you know how to grow things though, right?
I do know how to grow things. And I got 50 Adams elderberries And these are sticks. They were like 10-inch long sticks with like 5-6 nodes on them.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told just to stick them in the ground. Well, I don't stick things in the ground. I want to give them their best limb up. So I did 4x4x9 pots with some nice planting material, planting soil in it, and azomite, mycorrhiza, worm castings, all the good stuff. And then that was in January of 23. In February of 23, I got 50 Bob Gordon elderberries sticks, and planted them. By April, 98 of them had budded out into plants. I had a 98% success rate. And
wow,
so that was last March, April. We planted them in the ground last July, and I'm getting to the question, I promise. We planted them in the ground in July. And when they came out of dormancy, I ended up planting 92 plants. I planted Bob Gordon, Adams, and Wildwood. I actually acquired 6. I traded some Bob Gordon and Adams for some Wildwood. These are all commercial varieties of elderberries. And I planted 92, 90 of them made it.
Oh, wow.
So I have 90 elderberries in the ground. And I'm going to back up for this question about what I'm doing with the elderberry fruit. I'm going to back up with a story on how to grow fruit trees. This is an elderberry is a berry, but it can be a tree. So I consider them in the same class. The first year of growing a berry or a plant is about establishing the root system. Its roots. The second year, that's this year, is about establishing the shoots or the branches. So we get the structure in place. So last year roots, this year shoots, next year is fruits. So I will have fruits next year. And I ended up taking 95% of the elderberry flowers off of the plants this year.
Okay.
So that the plants would spend time making roots and making shoots so that we'd have good, strong plants next year. And I've been doing foliar feeding and fertilizing and that kind of stuff.
Just forward planting or planning on this here for sure.
Exactly. So that being said, I got about, I'm going to guess I'll get about 3 pounds of elderberries this year.
Okay.
And I am experimenting with what to do with them.
Okay.
So I dehydrated some, I froze some. I'm going to freeze some and then dehydrate them to see if they dehydrate easier, better, like that. So
do some experimenting with it.
Kind of playing with it because it is likely that I will have 5 to 7 pounds of berries off of each plant next year.
Yeah.
So I have
you got plans with the lady you talked about, right? Yeah, Samara.
I do. She told me she would take up to 500 pounds. The cooperative extension agent for small farms here in my area said, Greg, if you're growing them organically, I have a list of people that want them.
Oh, perfect.
So
probably that's what I'm saying. If there's not that many growers here in the States, then there's got to be plenty of demand. Plenty.
Well, just here in town.
Yeah, just there locally.
Just here locally. And so I'm considering just harvesting them and selling them fresh. That might be a cool thing to do.
Rob, I don't know. In the UK, people make a lot of elderberry wine.
There you go. Oh my gosh. And David was talking about our chicken juice episode from a couple of weeks ago. There is something I'd never heard of this before. There's something called a steam juicer. You ever heard of it?
A steam juicer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have heard of it? Or
I don't think I
no.
I've heard of a steam juicer. I've seen a lot of different juicers, but I don't think I've heard of a steam one.
So I was on with Wendy Bergen on my podcast. She's coming out here in the next couple of months as an episode, and she brings up this notion of a steam juicer.
Okay.
And so what it is it's a pot of water. There's a catchment pot in between, and you put the
Okay.
berries up top. And the steam, boiling the steam, steams the berries, and the juice comes out into the center piece and drains off.
Huh.
There you
interesting.
go. Jay just said steam juicer. That's
Yeah,
where the chicken juice came from. We were talking
There you
about.
go. There's a link for everybody if you want to find a
Yeah.
steam juicer right there.
Thanks.
That's great. Yeah. I've seen a lot of different juicers before. I've never seen that before. I'd be interested in check that
Yeah.
out for sure. Bowtie Life, our guest just a little earlier was like, that steam juicer episode is awesome.
Oh, wasn't it fun? So I interviewed Judith maybe 8 months ago. It was Judith, Wendy, and I interviewed Judith about 8 months ago, and I got interviewed by Wendy for her podcast maybe 3 or 4 months ago, and there was just this sparkle with both of them when we were playing.
Yeah,
I call playing. That's the interview process. We were just playing.
We're just playing here.
Yeah, we're just playing here today. Exactly. And for some reason, I talked to Judith, and she said, I interviewed Wendy too, and she was so much fun. And either Judith or I said, God, wouldn't it be fun just to get on a chat once a month and talk about what's going on our farm? Because Judith has a farm.
Yeah.
Wendy has a farm, and I have a farm. It's like we need to be sharing that. And we just cracked up laughing. It's
great. I've got to check that out. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
I love conversations like that. That's the way we like to try to do. Keep it loose, you know,
Right,
have some fun because we're just talking about gardening here, right?
Just like we're doing today. So whoever asked that question, that's what I'm doing with the berries.
That's what you're doing with the berries. That's great. And it's good to see that it's just moving along and all of that. You're going to be Farmer Greg, the elderberry farmer here real soon.
Yeah.
That's going to be great. So we'll have to catch up with you next year and see how all of that goes.
You know me. I love talking about this stuff, so I'm game.
Yeah, for sure. Let's see here. So one of the things you were mentioning to me too is what is growing at Goodness Grows Organics?
Okay. So
what is this all about, Greg?
What is this all about? So in Phoenix, I had the urban farm. The urban farm was my house.
Yeah.
Right in the middle of the city. It was 80 feet wide, 160 feet deep, about a third of an acre, called the urban farm.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left, I found an amazing family to take over the urban farm. So they're now managing the landscape and harvesting out of it, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. Exactly.
They're having great fun with it.
I love that farm. That was a great farm.
Yeah. And I am a huge proponent of becoming an urban farmer or a rural farmer. And there's 3 steps to it.
Okay.
Step 1 is grow food.
Yep.
Step 2 is share it with people.
Yep.
I don't care if you're sharing it with your family. You can call yourself a farmer.
That's right.
Because being a farmer and being a gardener, it's a different thing. A gardener is generally in our culture a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
Being a farmer is a profession.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a little bit more grit to it. There's more traction to it. Step number 3 is name your farm.
Name it.
Because when you name your farm and somebody asks you, oh, what do you do? Well, I have a farm. It's Goodness Grows Organics.
Yeah. Exactly. There you go.
So
yeah, that's what I need to do.
Yeah,
I've been thinking about it though too, actually, because we got 2 different spaces. I got the one I live in here, and then I got the one that I grow out of over at my friend's place. And they're 2 different spaces. And I was telling him, I was like, man, we need to think of some names.
Yes.
So instead of just saying the place that we're growing over here versus the place I'm growing here at home, home garden should have a name, and over there garden should have a name. And so I'm working on it.
Yeah, good. Good. So my partner Heidi came up with Goodness Grows Organics. It's kind of got a nice alliteration. And so this year was potatoes, basil, onions, I grew a lot of onions. I failed on the onions. I succeeded on the potatoes and the basil.
Yeah.
Cucumbers right now, we got cucumbers coming in like crazy. Lots of garden greens.
Yeah.
One of the things I suggest is plant open pollinated seeds.
Yes.
These are not heirlooms. These are open pollinated. And we grew in the spring, we were growing lettuce. And I always let them go to seed. Guess what? Right now, today, I have lettuce plants growing wild in my yard. So it took me, here's the thing, it took me less than 2 years to start the process of wild plants growing in my yard.
Yeah.
When you let a lettuce plant or a tomato plant grow wild, let them go to seed, you grow wild, you're letting nature be, just what we were talking about earlier. Nature, nature does what nature does. It plants where it wants to plant. It grows the way it grows. And then your only job, lazy gardener, lazy farmer, is to pick.
Yeah, exactly. And I love it too. I grow things for people like my friends and stuff, like eggplants, because I love growing eggplants, but I don't necessarily enjoy eating them myself.
Right.
There are a few dishes, and I'll try some new ones. If they throw them my way, I'm giving them the eggplants anyways.
Right.
But and several other things like that, so I love the idea about, if you're doing anything like that and you're sharing with anyone, your neighbor, your family, or anything like that, you're a farmer more than a gardener. I like it.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with being a gardener.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Okay, good.
Absolutely
I just
not.
want to be very clear about
that. Oh my gosh, no. Not
It's
at all. You just kind of
changes our life.
upgrade to kind of a farmer if you're producing produce for other people and all of that, right? So it's just a slight upgrade, but it's not a well, I guess upgrade would be the wrong word.
Right.
But it's just kind of a slight change in title.
Exactly.
A sidestep. I love it. There you go.
David mentioned that I flunked college in the
he was
early 80s. 2 D's and an F, hated it, never stopped learning.
Nope.
But ended up going back to college in 1999 and graduating with honors and yada yada like that. And while I was 99 to 04, I was in college for my bachelor's. Then I went and got my master's. While I was in college, I was growing and harvesting from my front and backyard and going to the farmer's market once a week.
Wow, that's great.
It was a Saturday gig and the Wednesday farmer's market. And I was growing enough food to make $200 or $300 a week, including flowers. And then when I was done at the market, anything I left over, I took it to Susan's restaurant, the Calico Cow.
There you go.
Gave the rest of it to her, and she made me lunch for free.
Oh, there you go.
So
that's perfect.
This is a perfect, that's being a farmer. This is a perfect part-time gig for a stay-at-home mom, for a stay-at-home dad, for, high school kids, for retired people. Grow food for your community.
Yeah,
they will love you for it.
And everybody does, and that's just one of the great things is when you give somebody something that you've grown fresh from your garden. Not only is it kind of cool for you because if you got extras and too many, maybe it's like zucchini season, right? It's like maybe I got some I just need to get rid of, but for the most part, giving somebody is a good feeling. But when you see the response you get from someone else when they're getting fresh food that you've grown and all of that is so amazing. And like I say too, as I mentioned, I have people that walk through the alleyway. So if I'm out there or something and I'm pulling things apart, if you're walking through the alleyway, you're probably walking out of it with some stuff in your arms. That's just kind of the way that's just kind of the way it goes around here. Awesome. So Goodness Grows Organics. That's the new farm there in North Carolina now.
Yep.
Excellent. But you're still doing everything over there in the urban farm and all of that in Arizona. Still keeping
so
keeping those programs going.
Yeah, let me make a distinction here. The urban farm, the location I sold.
Okay.
I no
it is
longer
no-
live there. The family that lives there now is loving it.
Yeah.
But urban farm nursery. So the big thing that I still do in Phoenix is the urban farm nursery.
Yeah.
It is a 25-year-old fruit tree education program.
Yeah.
Where people can learn about growing fruit trees really anywhere. And then people can buy fruit trees from us. And in 25 years, we've sold upwards of 80,000 trees.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. And that started in 1999. My goal was to plant 500 fruit trees in Phoenix.
Oh,
And
excellent.
it's turned into this.
Yeah.
So
80,000 fruit trees later.
Exactly. So I'm still doing the fruit tree program, and I go back to Phoenix for the fruit tree program every year. You can find out about that at fruittrees.org.
Mhm.
And I go back once in the fall every year for our seed event.
Yeah.
About 10 years ago, a buddy of mine and I dreamed up this idea called the Great American Seed Up.
Yeah.
It's a seed bazaar. Imagine a 10,000 square foot room with over 100 different open pollinated seeds in it.
Yeah.
In
That would just
popcorn
be
buckets. We
just
put them in
amazing.
popcorn buckets and put a scoop next to them and a business card and a little plastic bag. So if you walk up to, say, the basil
Yeah.
bucket, you make your own scoop, put it in the bag, put a card in the bag, zip it up, mark, I want 1 scoop of basil seeds. And
That's great.
yeah, and it's amazing having 200 or 300 people in this room at one time, all scooping seeds. And we designed it to super energize the local seed economy in Phoenix, because what I realized about over a decade ago, was that in the case of an emergency, the only place to get vegetable seeds is at 1 or 2 racks at the big box stores and the nurseries.
That's right, huh?
Right?
That's right.
So we actually, during COVID, we actually put together something called a seed up in a box. So you can actually do this on your own, whether you live in Phoenix or not. And all the seed packets are designed to have 5 to 10 times the amount of seeds in them.
Okay.
So the scoops are 5 to 10 times the amount, and the price is half to 75%.
Wow.
This is a massive
That's
bulk buy
great.
for seed. Yeah,
Yeah,
because
that's just great.
without local seeds, you can't have local food.
That's right. And again, too, the seeds being from in localized areas and that sort of thing is, it's going to grow well where
Yeah.
you're living and all of that as well too. It's perfect. And again, I like that idea too. As you were saying, that made me think about the World Seed Bank. You ever seen the pictures of this where it has like the crazy kind of front to it? It looks like something
yeah.
out of Star Wars movie or something, and it's like they up in Norway or someplace like that, like really way up there, where they keep like all of the world seeds in this kind of like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like bank of them or something like that. And when you were saying that too, I was like, yeah, if everything kind of goes, how are we going to get to all the way up to Norway?
Exactly.
How's
my
this
God.
going to happen? So this idea of doing this sort of thing is kind of really important locally and to
Yeah.
be done, local seed banks. And again, too, it might be a good idea for people just to know of. And if you're a gardener, it's just to kind of reach out and figure out and know where your local seed banks are, because,
Yeah.
I mean, I know I've got kind of a nice treasure chest of old seeds I've had around for a while and all of that. But if we're in an emergency situation, we need some seeds now for any sort of thing that might ever come up, man, you're going to want to know where to go, because that's where you're going to want to go. If anything like that ever happens, I always tell people, it's like, if any sort of collapse of the world happens, you're going to want to find seeds and a place to grow them.
Yeah.
Because we need food.
That's why I did what I did. I want to riff off of something that Jersey Girl said.
Yeah.
Jersey Girl said, I would be in big trouble if I went to a seed event. I have a seed addiction. I kid you not. Here's the deal, Jersey Girl. I have a fruit tree and a seed addiction.
Trees are another one too.
My first year doing fruit trees in Phoenix was 1999. That's 25 years ago. I bought 100 trees. And I
Oh
bought
my.
100 trees because I wanted to grow 500 fruit trees in Phoenix. And it has turned into something that has brought in 4,000 trees a year for the past 15 years.
Yeah.
That's a lot of dang trees. And my like over 80,000 trees. That
Wow.
is huge. And so
Exactly.
the other thing, Jersey Girl, is this is also my seed addiction. We sell a ton of seeds a year of 100 to over 100 different varieties. In fact, I just got another order from my team that I have to place this week, and there's easily 2,000 pounds of probably 80 different varieties of seeds on that.
Yeah.
And we're buying non-GMO, open pollinated heirloom style seeds. And so what I encourage you to do, Jersey Girl, is to do it and turn it into something that makes a difference in your community.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think, and one of the things I've been working and gearing towards some of the changes and developments that we're going to do towards my garden spaces. So we're going to open up the front yard here coming up, hopefully this next year. We're going to bring back my carport rooftop pepper garden.
Woo! I love that.
Hopefully we're going to get some bee boxes up there as well too, and some chickens back. What I want to do is really develop a whole system to where this time more so I want to take everybody online that knows and follows the channel and everything along with the adventure, but really I'm geared more community towards this. I want to develop like community oriented, like urban farming courses and ways to do things and things like that to help people kind of do that same sort of stuff and grow food for themselves and all of that sort of thing as well too, but do it locally for the community and get more people as close to me as possible involved with what I can do, because it's fun to get out here and do this show. This is a great show. We got a great worldwide audience and everything, but really where we're most effective if we want to do anything as gardeners, when we really get some good knowledge behind us and have some, have something to share with everybody, not just the food we're growing, but also the knowledge we have, then that's what we should be doing it on a local level. Community gardens, creating community programs, tree growing programs. I love what you did with that in Phoenix. I think it's a great model for other communities. The seed up as well too. I mean, this is just awesome stuff that people can be doing on a local level.
Well, so yes, absolutely. And I was in Croatia in 2014.
Yeah.
And the striking thing for me about Croatia, we were in Zagreb, was most everybody had food growing in their front yard.
You're right.
The striking thing for me here in the US is 98% of the people don't have food growing in their front yard.
Yeah.
We have to change that.
It's still a major fascination for people.
Yeah.
In general. Not a oh, this is what we do in general. It's a fascination in general. Like, oh wow, look at that garden you grow.
Yeah.
You could grow one too. It's not really hard, and again too becomes this misconception as well that I like to squash as much as I can, because I don't know how to say it, it just kind of gets me when I hear people saying I got a brown thumb or that sort of thing. It's like, no, there is a green thumb in every single person out there. We all have the ability to grow. Everybody can grow a garden. If your thing is that you kill plants, you don't even know nothing yet. You should see the amount of plants I've killed in my garden.
That's what I tell people.
You think that's what your problem is killing plants?
I promise you, I've killed more plants than you have.
Go out, start a garden and kill some plants. Do it.
Yep. Exactly. Jersey Girl said something about 200. You flashed it up there, about 200. Oh, there it is right there. Oh, Rob's Allotment Garden says, I'm in this, just the same. I must have over 200 packets of seeds in containers. Yeah. And then Rob's Allotment Gardening, it becomes a warehouse with 2 tons of different kinds of seeds in it. And
Yes, it does. It
that's what
does.
I did,
I've got a
Landmark
ton of them.
Education. Landmark Education?
I don't think I've heard, no.
Landmark Education is a personal breakthrough company. They put you through seminars
Okay.
that have you shift the box that you think in, essentially. And I did a lot of work with them from 90 to 94. And their big thing is to take a stand. Take a
Yeah.
stand and do something out there. And so in 1991, I created myself to be the person on the planet responsible for transforming our global food system.
Yeah.
That's my job. Here I am 33 years later, and that's what I do every day.
Yeah.
You can do it. Take it on.
I've kind of got one I've been working on, and it's
Ooh.
kind of been, and it has been kind of my goal since I actually first started creating and sharing, but I haven't really put it out there too much. I mean, I've
Are you
talked
ready
about
to
it.
share?
No, I've talked about it and all that. And yeah, and I will too here, but because I kind of went on a whole rant about this earlier in the season, but it hasn't something I've really developed into something yet that I think that I'm working on, that I want to, and it has, because I started my whole sharing out of the year 2016. And people remember what the year 2016 was like, and how things were after that, and everything too. So my idea for, and something I want to work a little bit more in my mission in a way too, and I think really might just be too, when it comes down to it, might be just a great name for the garden too when it comes down to it, but common ground gardening. And common ground gardening is just this common ground gardening is just the concept of, we all come from different backgrounds, whether it's, our socioeconomic backgrounds to political backgrounds to, just like you said, someone who lives here who grew up in Croatia. You know what I mean? Living here in the States or something like that would go and look, wow, they have a completely different background. They'd look at our gardening and go, wow, you guys don't all do this sort of stuff. You know what I mean? So we have these different concepts and different backgrounds and different thoughts and who we are and everything. But the one place where we all can find common ground is in a garden. It's the one place where the conversation can always start right there, right in the garden, because we all need to eat. And we're all like, and it comes back to this idea too, that, we're all really fascinated with how nature works and how gardens grow and plants, and how you can take a little seed and it turns into some food later on. It's just a human nature to have that. It's in all of us.
And
really,
it's not just a little bit of food, an obscene amount of food.
Yeah.
I've said for years, the only place that this notion of lack lives, I don't care what you're talking about, lack lives right here.
Yeah,
because when I look at the abundance that comes off of a peach tree, or the amount of seeds that come off of carrot tops, or sweet potatoes or potatoes. 50 pounds of potatoes this year.
Exactly. And I've always said that our food problem in the US or the worldwide isn't like you said, a lack. It isn't a lack of food. It's not like we need, there is so much food. So how we're growing it, what we're doing, our systems that are involved, all that sort of stuff. And then again too, when it comes down to it, waste. In that sort of sense as well too. These, we talk about stores and how they grow and farm only certain specific stuff because it looks pearly and shiny on a shelf and can ship there and get there and all of that, so imagine all the ones that don't look like that, that become a part of waste. Yeah, and we can go on and on and on about that stuff for sure. I'm telling you, the whole food system. But when it comes down to it, like I said, I think that's kind of my mission when I first got started, was to kind of create a common ground gardening style where it's a welcoming place for everybody to come to. And not only that, but to share in those differences as well, though, too, because here's another thing that I truly believe, and I don't go on and I don't encourage really here for this space in general, but you know what I'm saying? The general too. Everybody talks about religion and politics and stuff like that as well too. That I think one of the reasons why we have and live in a situation where is because of the lack of talking with each other. Is when it
Yep.
comes down to it.
Yep.
It's a lack of doing that. It's not that we shouldn't do that. It's a lack of doing that is our problem. And finding a common ground and a common space where we can start with a general thing that we all enjoy, can all find a fascination with, all get something from, i.e. food and all of that, then,
Right.
we can then start the conversation on those other things.
Yes.
And have a common ground we started from and have a base where we're all, we all get where we're coming from. We're all right here. Now let's talk about some of that other stuff.
Yeah.
And hopefully maybe I can develop this concept just a little bit more and bring it more forward, especially as we move forward here. I mean, here we are in another type of one of those similar types of cycles going on right now. So it's that kind of thing that people need to know. And I think there's so many reasons why a garden is just a complete treasure and oasis. So many reasons, and you can't name them all. And it's just one of the many.
Yeah.
Is just what it does for each of us as individuals and our differences and bringing us together.
Amen to that, because we all eat. When you have a party, where do people gather?
Yeah.
In the kitchen, around the food.
Yep. Exactly. Garden parties, string out the lights, get the picnic table out and, start make some dishes out of the things that are growing, and you got it all around. Oh man, I'm telling you, harvest parties and those sort of things at the end of the year, some of the best things you can get to do, man. But wow, I'm telling you, so many good things, Greg, so many awesome things. I could talk to you about this stuff all day long.
Right? Yeah. That's why I said, do we really need topics?
I know. That's what I was thinking again, too. I was thinking about that. But, always good thing to talk about, and always awesome to catch up with you, Greg, about all the sort of things going on. Anything else that we need to know about what's going on with the Urban Farm, the podcast, or anything else that we might not have mentioned yet?
Yeah, we're coming up on 9 years on the podcast in November. And
9 years. Wow.
Yeah, over 850 episodes by then.
Yeah. I've been on about 3 of them myself too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're both 3-timers on each other's.
Yeah, there you go. So, keep listening, keep growing.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. We do a lot of education. You mentioned earlier that you're looking at doing some education. We do, and I can help and contribute there.
Yeah, I'll definitely.
When it's time, we can definitely chat about that. I put online a lot of freebies, and I talk a lot about soil and building healthy soil, and I have this a short series of videos at healthysoilhacked.com.
Yes.
So you can go check that out. Healthy Soil Hacked.
healthysoilhacked.com.
Yep.
Oh wow. All right. Yeah. Maybe if we give Jay a moment there, she'll figure that out and drop a link in there for us.
Perfect.
That'll be perfect. Yeah. But yeah, definitely. And I think that's one of the great things that you're going to get over at the Urban Farm is a lot of that educational stuff. And again, too, similar as to what we offer here on the Let's Get Growing show is just great conversations around the many, many different subjects and, all the different avenues in gardening. There's so many to cruise down and to take a look at and all those conversations. And you've had tons of them with so many great guests. So if you like these sort of conversations that it's never ending over at the Urban Farm podcast. So definitely go and check that out too. We've got a link right down below in the description for everybody to go and check that out. I do see that Jay just dropped that into the chat as well too. Healthy Soil Hacked, because again too, and this is something we talk all about too. I was talking a lot about this last week as well. It all starts with the soil really when it comes down to it, and building great soil is a great thing. So go check out Healthy Soil Hack there at that link in the chat.
Serena has a question. You want to talk about it?
Oh, what was it? I'm sorry. Maybe I did.
That's okay.
Here it is. Yep. Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on the new GMO purple tomato?
The purple tomato. Yeah.
I have one thought. What's your thoughts?
Well, My thoughts are, I'm not sure necessarily. I think I've kind of evolved a little bit in some of my thoughts. I think I'm probably going to revisit this maybe coming up a little bit later in the season. I'm not sure. We did try to do an episode of the show. I think it was probably like around our fourth or fifth episode around there, where we invited the lady who developed the purple tomato, and she was going to come on and talk all about it and everything, but something happened and we didn't end up having that conversation. I'm not sure exactly about the ins and outs on all that sort of stuff. My thoughts more than anything else about GMO and how different things are bred, hybrids. We mentioned open pollinated. There are different things, and there's different stuff out there, and I think it's just good on gardeners to get some good education about this stuff, learn about the differences, understand what they are, and all that sort of stuff. Because here's the biggest thing I think is really the biggest thing about it all, is that it's here and it ain't going away. You know what I mean? In fact, this was the very first seed available to all of us gardeners out there who could grow in our own home gardens and all of that sort of stuff. And there's going to be new stuff coming out maybe next year. And then the next year after that, there'll be newer things and newer varieties and all that sort of stuff. And this was basically, as I mentioned in a talk I had about this earlier in the year, is that it was basically a Pandora's box, basically, that was opened by science back in the 80s. And a lot of what we understand about GMO in the foods, in these GMO foods and stuff today, and compared to what they were initially trying for, and all, it's just become all this sort of stuff. But ultimately the point is it's here, and there's going to be more of it. So you might want to understand it. You might want to learn about it. You might want to, we always, in fact, Home Gardeners was always giving the seed companies, like, you put these things that say non-GMO, but we can't buy GMO seeds. Well, now that's changed. So we do got to start paying attention to that stuff a little bit more. Yeah. We got to kind of hold people a little bit more accountable for the types of seeds and where their seeds are coming from, and whether or not, there's seed breeding and things like that. And if we're concerned about our gardens in that way, then we should just learn a bit more about that stuff so that we can, do whatever way we want to.
Yeah.
All right. That was a long little rant on a simple answer I could have given.
Here's my rant.
Yeah.
Why?
Right. Yeah.
And so that's part one. That's for
well, their explanation would be, of course, that they wanted to increase anthocyanins in a it's the level that you would get in blueberries. And then again, we would say, well, why not grow blueberries? Grow blueberries in. Yeah. And I get that sort of stuff. I am a very fascinated plant person, so a lot of stuff does kind of fascinate me. I do, some of those interesting things. So some of the things I found more interesting about this than other things that are out there and the other GMOs that were different was that this was a snapdragon crossed with an edible snapdragon crossed with a tomato, versus lizard DNA crossed with whatever, or I don't even know, some other organism, some fungus DNA, or you know what I mean, something that's a completely different organism, and crossing that. These were two plants that were edible that just, they forced the cross on those, utilizing those same methods though that they would with the others.
Yeah, I actually don't have a big problem. I don't have a little problem with experimenting with GMOs. The problem I have with it is putting it in the public domain before we know the impact that it's going to make.
Mm-hmm.
That right there is my problem with it.
And that was the initial issue and problem with all of this science, all the way back in those 80s when they first started figuring out how they can utilize these bacteria splicing type technologies and stuff to do that stuff. And again, isn't this the case with all science in a sense though, is that sometimes we just kind of run just fast into things because they're just, look what we can do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It goes, look what we can do. And so then we do it without thinking about what it actually means to do what we think we can do.
Yeah.
And it's a great point. And I think there's a lot of thoughts and a lot of talk to be about that. I'd love to do a whole show about talking about some of the ins and outs of that sort of stuff. And again, I would have loved to have had that conversation with the lady who developed this tomato, just to learn a little bit more about the science, where it came from. And again, too, to answer that question of why, you know, and it's good to know and understand their reasoning and everything. But again, too, you know, these are things we just got to learn more about.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be more of it.
Yeah.
There's just going to be more of it. And it's going to be newer things. All right, Greg. Again, too, I said we're going to talk and talk all day long. And I love to chat with you for just a moment, too. I'm just going to pull off here, end the show real quick. And then that there, too. So
thanks, everybody.
But thank you, Greg, for being on the show again for the third time. And everybody, if you haven't had a chance to check out Greg, the Urban Farm podcast and all of that too, again, link right down in the description below to all of that. Go check that out. Go to one of those. I don't know if there's a way maybe to leave comments or anything like that, but if there is, go leave them some comments or let them know you found them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Thanks again, Greg. And we'll see you again on the show real soon. Okay, there we go. What an awesome show today. Wow. Great conversations, getting to meet Bowtie Life in the Garden. How awesome was that at the beginning of the show? Once we finally got everything figured out and got this show started today. So again, too, kind of a funky start to our whole show today, but we sure did get everything going and cruising along with some really awesome conversations. And again, thanks to Greg for again another wonderful conversation here on the Let's Get Growing show. And I do want to remind you, we are a weekend show, so we'll be back right here tomorrow on the Sunday edition, same time, same place, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, right here on the Urban Gardener channel. And also tomorrow, Sunday, is the second Sunday of the month. And on the second Sunday of the month, we are so fortunate to have with us Master Gardener Scott Wilson from the Gardener Scott channel, joining with us to answer all of your gardening questions. So if you have any gardening questions or anything about what's going on in your garden, maybe you're dealing with some issues or just any general questions at all, come and join with us tomorrow, same time, same place, with Gardener Scott to answer all of those questions for you. And also next Sunday too, I want to also mention, forward promote, next Sunday show is the third Sunday of the month, and that is our gardening book club, our monthly gardening book club. And this month's selection is Leave Your Troubles Behind from Karen Hugh. She's going to be joining with us next Sunday, along with our good friend Mark Boucher Colbert, to help co-host our monthly gardening book club on the third Sunday of the month. So definitely come and check that out. Just a wonderful book, Leave Your Troubles Behind. I love this book, so I hope you guys get this book. Check it out. If you don't have the book, come and check it out anyways. We'll talk all about it with Karen and talk all about all of the great things in that book. And again, too, if you did get to check out last Saturday's show, too, we had with us our good friend Kay Cottrell from Late Bloomer Garden, one of our great friends here on the Urban Gardener channel. As I said, Kay is one of those first people in the gardening community that I got to interview, or first YouTube gardeners to invite me over to her place to do an interview and all of that in her front yard LA urban garden that she used to have. So she's got a completely different garden that she's growing in now. So you'll want to go and check out that conversation with her that we had last Saturday, as well as getting to meet Desiree Lindsley from Gardening with Des. She was such a fun conversation talking about garden bugs. You'll want to check that out. She's, we talk about this this too here on the show as well too, is turning fear into fascination. And that's one of the things that Desiree really does well with the content that she does on her channel is, you know, just showing you how fascinating some of these spiders and bugs and these different things in our garden can be and how helpful they really, really are. So you'll want to go back and check out some of those shows as well too, you know. And also, if you are here with us here as we're about to close out, hit that like button, hit the thumbs up, click the subscribe button if you haven't as well too. Click the bell notification so you'll be notified of upcoming episodes and videos. Share, share, share with all of your garden friends, with all your garden communities and groups out there. Let everybody know about the Let's Get Growing show. And really quick here too, before you leave, get down in the description there below, and there's a link to our Facebook group, the Let's Get Growing group, where you can come and join with us and continue the gardening conversation and share with us all of the photos and videos of your gardens and everything that you've got growing on. And I love to see everything that you've got growing on as well too. So definitely go and do that. Click that link down below in the description there, as well as all of our other links that we have to our guests and all of that as well. That's where you can find all of our information. And again, everybody, thank you so much for joining with me here today for such a great show with some really great guests. And we'll see all of you tomorrow for the Sunday edition.